When everything is marketing and marketing is everything, taglines and trends are just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. On the M Word, we're talking marketing and mission and the pursuit of what's personal. I'm your host, Jennifer Mulchandani, and you are listening to the M Word podcast presented by Arlington Strategy. On today's episode, I'm talking with Kimberly Spencer, an award-winning high-performance, trauma-informed coach and trainer, Amazon best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and the founder of crownyourself.com. Kimberly helps visionary leaders transform their self-limiting stories, build their empire, stand out fearlessly, and make the income and the impact they deserve. Our high-energy conversation gets deeply personal and spans the impacts of Kimberly growing up with entrepreneurial parents and taking risks to how Kimberly saw her buyout from her first company as a failure. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Good morning, Kimberly. Thanks for being on the M Word.
Good morning, Jennifer. It is my honor to be here with you. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Well, we have so much to talk about because you and I were just talking. I asked you before we hit record where you come down on language, and I'm talking about swear words. And you talked about language being so expressive. And
yeah,
I meant to say to you, and I'm glad we're saying it while I'm recording, your website, you use you don't hold back. So I've seen personal, whether it's leadership coaches or personal coaches, kind of hide behind, I'm going to help you to become the person that you're meant to be. And you're more like, you are that person. And I love that about what you're doing. So let's back up. You tell our listeners, what do you do? What's your business? And just a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, my entrepreneurial journey started at 5, selling bags of glitter water to my neighbors because I grew up with 2 entrepreneur parents. So I was destined for entrepreneurship and basically raised for it. Currently, my businesses, I've had my coaching business, crownyourself.com, for the past 9 years, working with visionary leaders. And then from that, we birthed, with a second child, I figured, why not birth a second business? We birthed the Communication Queens agency that is strategic matchmaking for visionary leaders to the podcast that build their brand awareness and their bottom line. So navigating 2 businesses and 2 babies, it's like being a mom.
Yeah. And you can carry a bag of groceries at the same time, right?
Yeah. And you carry all the groceries because you cannot make 2 trips.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So you've been running, you've been an entrepreneur for, is it how many years now?
Officially since I was 19. So that's 16 years, 17 years.
I don't do math, but
I don't do math in public either.
Really, really young. That's fantastic. When we talked previously, you told me that your dad was your best role model of entrepreneurship. So tell me more about that. And, what did that look like observing it, and how did that influence where you are now?
Yeah. So I watched my parents grow a business from nothing to $1 million annual business by 2019, 2020. I think it was 2019. And that progression of starting out with nice middle class, but there were many times where I was told, oh, we can't afford it, we can't buy it. So suddenly I was like, oh, I'm going to private school and I have nice things and get nice jewelry. And that was a big shift. So I saw the power of that. And I also saw that it could be done while my dad was a highly functioning addict. And that experience of seeing the dichotomy, I said, well, if he created that in 30 years, what could I do in 10? And that was really a big catalyst to my entrepreneurship journey that I'm so grateful for. Also, it's very different being raised by entrepreneur parents because they have a different perception of risk than the person who's worked a 9 to 5. I had a conversation with my mom because when I was born, or when I was about to be born, she quit her job and started helping out my dad in working with him because he would just kind of throw the bit through. He was very much the visionary. She was the integrator. And so I saw that dynamic play out he would throw the papers on the bed and she was like, what about follow-up? What about systems? What about these pieces that are important to building a business? And that was very much the addict side. He was very personable, very outgoing, very gregarious, very generous, and that very likable. And that dynamic was really powerful to see. So and that was something that I was missing for years in my businesses because I didn't have that dynamic. I now have that with my husband, which is great. He's not directly involved with my businesses, but he's involved with he's the integrator for our household. Like I hold the vision, he integrates the vision, he brings in the contractors and everyone who needs to kind of solve those problems. So my mom was pushing me in a stroller, passing out flyers to the neighbors to, share about their business. I've been on the company Christmas card since I was 3. And I saw customer longevity because we had customers that kept them on their on their refrigerator for years, like throughout my lifetime. They kept all our family Christmas cards for the company. I saw that integration of the visionary entrepreneur. And I also saw the self-destruction and the self-sabotage that can come with entrepreneurship, especially when being run by an addict, and how to navigate around that and build systems and support structure that prevent against, the more challenging aspects of entrepreneurship. But I so appreciate the fact that I saw that through that lens, because then when I'm having a conversation with my mom now of like, it was a few years ago, we had a cash flow crisis, and I was like, Mom, I've got like 2 weeks left to payroll. And she was like, oh, there were days that we had like maybe 2 days left. And that's your 2 weeks, you're farther ahead. And it's such a perspective shift when you can see that. And like, oh, that's not crazy for a business owner to experience. Ideally, you don't experience because you have systems and financial systems in place, but it was a very big learning lesson. And then B, being able to have the perspective shift and have that feedback rather than like, oh my gosh, it's okay, are you going to quit? Such a different perspective and such a different support network when you're building something that you deeply believe in as a visionary.
So has your personal tolerance of risk evolved in your maturity as a business owner?
Yes, 100%. As I had my children, 1000%.
In which way? Have you become more risk averse or more risk tolerant?
I have actually become, it depends on what you think the risk is, though. For example, when I was first starting out my coaching business, it was right after I was coming off of the tails of being bought out of my e-commerce business, where I had just faced 3 months of lawyers telling me how incompetent I was, how I wasn't, I was too young, I didn't have a degree, all the things. And it was really just to get my price down. But I took it personally because I'd never had anyone attack my character as a business owner in the past. And so I really struggled for that first year and a half of making any money in my coaching business because I was so deeply scared of rejection. And so the risk of being rejected, I was fine with. I could tolerate not making any money in my business and having to take a side job. And I could tolerate that for myself. But as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was like, yeah, this is bullshit. And and not only that, but the person who I had become throughout that year of dabbling in what I call productive procrastination in my business, where you're doing all the nice, lovely things, but nothing that actually gets you sales, nothing that actually puts you forth and could get you rejected. You don't share a polarizing message. You stay really good and everything's really pretty, but it's not sharing the real, it's not authentic. It's not sharing the real deal. And meanwhile, I was preaching that authenticity was like the core value. Please. I was not embodying it though. And the beautiful thing was when I found out I was pregnant with my son, I was like, I understand that I'm $40,000 in debt. I'm going to put $5,000 extra down on a credit card and sign up for NLP, neuro-linguistic programming training, so that I can because I knew it was a mindset problem. I knew I could fix that mindset problem because I saw the similar patterns to when I had healed myself from bulimia, from a 10-year battle of bulimia with no psychological or medical intervention. I knew I could do it myself. And I said, I just know I have a 9-month deadline and I kind of need to get this ball rolling. And so I immediately got certified in that. And then I And then I added an extra 5 grand onto the additional debt because as soon as I got certified in it, I bought my husband his certification because I said, we're not going to be on the same page parenting with language, with belief systems, with values if you don't go through this program as well. And then immediately I went and started making sales. And suddenly the game shifted because I was no longer scared of the risk of rejection, and the risk of debt didn't really bother me anymore because I knew that debt is a leverageable asset that I could use because I could make the money. And my son gave me the fire to fuel with finances, basically.
It's interesting because, this theme of like fear in entrepreneurship comes up in almost every conversation I have with people. People, they're of different parts of it, people are afraid of different parts of it, but this like fear as a negative motivator is, or detractor, whatever the opposite of motivation is,
Yeah.
it's so common. So are there things that you still fear in your business? Are you fear-free with mindset work or?
No,
So,
you face courage daily because odds are there's something that you're avoiding. And so your greatest progress and growth in your business is on the other side of whatever it is you're avoiding doing. Maybe it's, installing KPIs and actually having some performance metrics. Maybe it is actually having a conversation on the regular with your bookkeeper where even though you're like, oh my God, like you have that conversation, or you're like, oh my God, like it's really not as bad as you think. Like sometimes that's the case. Maybe it's, asking for that sale. Maybe it is, wherever it is, maybe it's going for that partnership, asking for that big client. Like we just signed a couple big clients to our agency. And I love the fact that they are leveling us up into a level of excellence that I'm so excited for and so excited to work with, because that's what I'm no longer motivated by a fear of like my own rejection. I'm motivated by a fear of letting others down, and not in a people pleasing way. And like, I want to deliver with excellence and have massive customer satisfaction. And the idea of a customer being dissatisfied with our services. And I know I'm human. I can't control everybody's experience. But the idea of like really striving for excellent customer satisfaction, both in my coaching business and in our agency, because of just the quality of delivery, like that is what I fear actually not having, rather than like looking like a fool or looking like getting embarrassed or things like that. So it's less of the ego-based fears now. It's a lot more of like service-based fears, or the lack of service. And there's a great book by Stephen Pressfield called The Warrior Ethos. And my TED Talk was called Becoming a Warrior for Possibility. And in The Warrior Ethos, he talks about how the Spartan culture, like societal shame of like, you say like your reputation is a huge asset. And the more I have grown my businesses, the more I have seen it gets very small at the top, like, and everybody knows everybody. And so performing at that level and maintaining that reputation of excellence is essential, where like you don't like, I don't want to fuck around with that. And because in that culture, like your reputation is everything. And so in the warrior culture, that's what I really took away from that book, was that it's an away from motivation, away from the shame that could be felt by letting someone else, like not delivering on the customer experience that you wanted, that you promised.
Right. No, that's so powerful. And I identify so much in what you just said too. Part of these conversations on this podcast is to talk about where we fuck up or fail, or whatever that means to the person. So you've said on your website that you believe there's power and profit in mistakes. So
yes,
talk to me about that. Like, what does that really mean?
Well, I mean, I considered being bought out of my e-commerce company back in 2014. 2014. When was I married? 2014. Because I signed the buyout agreement 3 weeks before I got married. So I can always, it was a big year. And that I considered that a failure for the longest time because I thought I lost my company. I'd spent 2 years building it. And I'd spent 2 years building it, and I was so devastated by that loss, not realizing the massive gain that I had. Because for me, it was never about the money. For me, it's always about like the mission and what we could bring to people and how we could serve. That was the mistake in how my thinking was the biggest transformation for me, of seeing that as a failure. Because I've had so many business strategists and consultants and podcasters go like, wait, you got a buyout like for a startup? Like that's gold. And I was like, oh, I never really thought of it like that. So the perspective shift, there's power in the perspective shifts around the failures. Like I considered myself a failure for a year and a half in my coaching business because I was like coaching out of my car and barely made $100 that first year because I was doing all the dabbling. But that experience allowed me to really be able to call out in a big way in the beginning stages of my coaching business when I started working with mostly solopreneurs back then. Now I work with more established entrepreneurs. But when I started my business, I was calling people out boldly for the mistakes that they were making because I saw them in myself, because I knew them like on a heart level. Because of my buyout experience, I've been able to navigate and support my clients through going through their own buyout experiences and just coaching them through how to navigate their own internal feelings, how to navigate the relationship, how to navigate the separation, because it's like a divorce. And then, just the ability to see every single little mistake as something that is going to grow you, that is the biggest mindset shift that you can have, because when you see everything as an opportunity to create even greater levels of wealth and impact and success, like that mindset alone is money, period.
Yeah. So you just set up my next curiosity so perfectly. What is success to you?
Success has really changed a lot over the years. If you had asked me when I was like 10, it would have been like winning the Academy Award. But now it's very much doing fulfilling, meaningful work that I'm excited to do every day, spending time with my boys, because I have a 6 and a 2-year-old, and my husband, and being able to have time for my family and be able to have the holistic success of feeling healthy and strong in my body, having fulfilling, beautiful relationships. It's gotten so multifaceted now. It's no longer this one achievement-based idea of success, because just yesterday I was on podcasts and sales calls and strategy calls with my clients, and producing some really epic things for my team, and I got to work on writing my book, and it was technically a very successful business day, but I didn't feel fully like a success until my boys and I gathered our swords and we walked outside onto our road, and to like travel and go see the ghost house that we call it down that is nearby us. And so we until I had that like really fulfilling mom moment of quality time, it didn't feel like a successful day. And so I judge the day by, did the quality of my relationships improve? Did we have meaningful conversations? Did I support people in fulfilling their dream? And did I serve at a high level? That's how I define success now. It's no longer just this one achievement-based thing.
Right. So I have to imagine you work with clients on thinking about that for themselves. And I particularly find it interesting to hear people answer this question, because for so many people, success is it's the financial gain. It's how early they can retire. It's the standard of, living that they can afford through their business.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that based on how someone defines that it impacts their overall quality of life? Like, are people who are very financially driven less satisfied than people who are more holistic in their definition of success?
It depends. I mean, you can be very financially motivated and not realize that your family, your fulfillment is actually your level of success, and that in providing financially for your family and being able to take, meaningful vacations and have those experiences, that it may seem forward focused. So it does require a little bit of digging and a guide
Right.
sometimes to navigate as to what that really is. For those that are only seeking external validation, I do find that their level of fulfillment is very lacking when it comes to the success, because then there's always the next thing. Like, oh, I did that and I hit that, revenue marker, and then there's the next thing. Because that's what happens when we're not intrinsically motivated by our own something that's pulled forth from us, rather
Yeah.
than something that is outside of us driving us.
Yeah. So you talked about you talk about yourself as a subconscious success strategist.
Mhm.
So what do you mean by that? And how does that parlay into like what we're talking about here?
So we all have our subconscious stories, right? Like the subconscious mind is 95% of running the show. And I don't see myself as, I'm not the type of coach that I'm going to tell you what to do. Like, we will explore options. Coaching is supposed to open up options, and then I'll let my clients know what I see off of them and what I feel off of them based on the response. Um, but the subconscious mind, it's running our body. And so I can tell, like, by clients' body movements, by their micro movements, as far as like when something really lands. And the subconscious success strategy, we all have one that's unique and specific to us and how we're built. And when we can find that, what that is, and strip away what I call plagiarized programming, which is all the shoulds that everybody else said you should value.
Mm.
Like, for example, one of my clients, she recently downsized to a solopreneur business. And she had a huge team, was almost like scratching the surface at $1 million annual revenue. And she was like, she was so unhappy because she wasn't getting the tactile, hands-on experience of doing the art that she was initially started the business to do. And that's the piece of like, where are you like, there are some people who thrive in that entrepreneurship space of like grow, scale, build, sell it. Like, there are some visionary entrepreneurs who really thrive in that space. And there
Well,
are others.
doesn't society tell us that's what success is, though?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
So
what entrepreneurship's supposed to be.
right. If you aren't growing, then what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So this is resonating because I have a very close friend who, is like, I don't want to add team. I want to just deliver in whatever capacity. But she feels like she can't even show up, and I mean, I'm projecting now, but not to call herself an entrepreneur, there's this uncomfortable space where is that open to people if they're not always in this growth space?
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you set your own hours, you set what you want for your freedom level. And now some people want a lot of freedom, so they hire a lot of support.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. There are some who are the tacticians who prefer to just like, I have one client, she's a massage therapist, and she loves doing her work. Like, that's her art. That's her gift. And so she's not looking to build this like gigantic company. She just wants to have a beautiful, like, nice business with recurring revenue and good retention rates. And like,
Right.
and that also has, a solid passive income stream for it in some capacity to add a little bit of extra buffer and support, so it's not all hands on work all the time. Like, but it's not this huge megalith of a company. I think you have to decide what flavor of and size of company you want to have. And that's a conversation that, you want to know what your end goal looks like. Like, a $2 million company and what you're doing at a $2 million company is very different than what you're doing at a $25 million company. It's very different than what you're doing at a multi six-figure level company. So it depends on what it is deeply bringing you fulfillment. Like if, the idea of growing, building, scaling, like that's something that's exciting to me for our agency that I'm like really excited to do, but I don't have that same drive for my coaching business. Like I used to think like, oh, I want to have this coaching business with like a whole bunch of programs because that's what the online space was doing. And you got to have like all this program and it's like all of these students and, here's my $20 million business and my $1 million launch. And that's like the focus. And I'm like, no, I love in my coaching business, good, solid one-on-one work. I know it's completely not scalable. I loved hosting retreats and masterminds, and we keep it very intimate and very high touch.
Mhm.
And that's a different business model than my agency. My agency, I'm very much excited to scale and grow that and build it and sell it. Like
Right.
I'm very excited about that. And that's a new challenge. That's my love and my risk, I guess you could say, my love of the risk and the challenge and the going for something. But I had to come to terms with the fact that I did not want to have this like big giant heaping megalith of a coaching company. I wanted to have a really high quality, high delivery, high touch coaching service business that is doing a nice multi six figures. That's it for right now. Maybe that'll change and I'm okay with that changing. But for right now, I'm really okay with that. And I really love having that personalization. So it's understanding what type of an entrepreneur are you? I went,
Mhm.
Tony Robbins describes it as, are you the leader / manager? Are you the entrepreneur, which is the builder, scaler, sell it type? Or are you the artist? And a lot of the visionaries that I work with, they're the artists.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
their art is their business and it is building it and it is creating the team and the art of the flow and how that works. It just depends on who you are. And so when we unlock your subconscious success strategy, it's what is it that internally you knew you were supposed to be doing before everyone told you what you were supposed to be doing. And when you
Mhm.
find that sweet spot, that's your genius zone.
That is awesome. And that is such a perfect place to like bring this to a close because that's such a powerful um, goal, frankly, right? To achieve
Yeah.
that instead of all the longing. So, Kimberly, if folks want to find you and learn more, what is the best way to connect?
Yeah, if you love this conversation and you want to dive deeper into what your subconscious success strategy is, then head on over to crownyourself.com and click the button that says work with me. And if you're interested in the power of guest podcasting for your business and doing things like this, then head on over to communicationqueens.com and click the button that says get booked. And let's have your 100K profit from guest podcasting call.
That is awesome. Okay, before I let you go,
Yes.
Barbie or Ken?
I mean, I love Barbie. And as much as I love the Knuff song, because you are Knuff, I gotta go with Barbie.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you for sharing. Now, have your boys seen the movie?
No, they're 6 and 2, so they're a little young for it, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Give them a couple years because oh my gosh, I want my husband to see it. He didn't see it yet. I saw it with I went with a girlfriend of mine, and my husband, I think he would just die at the Ken, the Ken song. Just that was hysterical. I like
Yeah,
nearly peed my pants.
yeah.
And I also totally was bawling, crying, and constantly reminded of that speech that America Ferrera gave that I was like,
Oh, yes.
that hit every woman's soul in such a deep way who is striving, who is balancing, who's juggling, who's doing all the things and feels like some may be doing really well and some maybe not doing so well and all the expectations and that speech was absolute gold.
Yeah. It was very poignant for sure. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for your sharing your insights on that. And thank you for being a fabulous guest on the M Word. And I look forward to seeing all of the greatness that's coming from you in the future.
Right back at you, Jennifer. Looking forward to staying connected.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to The M Word. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Subscribe and never miss a podcast. Visit arlingtonstrategy.com for more. The M Word is an Arlington Strategy production hosted by Jennifer Mulchandani. Our theme music is by Moochie. Graphic design by Kayla Fagan and Emily Rare. Sound engineering and editing by Winston Turner.